Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamu alaikum and a very warm welcome to World This Morning. I am your host Hajra Sati and joining me is my wonderful co-host Ahmed Nawaz. Assalamu alaikum Ahmed, and how are you doing today?
Good morning, I'm very well. How about you?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. So I really wanted to share news about the Amazon forest because Amazon forest is known as the lungs of the world because they absorb that much amount of the carbon dioxide, and it is also called the carbon sink. So there are elections campaign going on in the Brazil where there are two candidates that are contesting the election. One is the current President Bolsonaro, and his opposing candidate or rival candidate is President-elect Lula da Silva. So President Bolsonaro has actually reversed a lot of green campaigns on the Amazon forest, and he wants to raise the forest and wants there to economic activity to take place.
That's very interesting actually, because a while ago we do remember that there was a huge public outcry in Brazil where the general public demanded no construction whatsoever in the region of the Amazon forest, which is protected, of course.
Right. But then again, he reversed a lot of things which protected the forest, especially the indigenous community that is living there and that has its stake with the forest, and forest protectors there, guards there. Again, his opposing candidates, he says that when he is elected, he will make sure that all these reverses against the deforestations are again reversed, and a lot of green activists are pinning his hopes on the president Lula da Silva, president-elect.
That's a smart campaign.
Yeah. I mean, Ahmed, just look at Pakistan, how we are affected by the climate change and how flooding and all of these climate-induced calamities has struck up. So it makes us even more important that we need to walk the talk on the climate change, and what best way to protect the forest than make sure that there are laws around the forest that protect us, and these are known as the carbon sinks. And if this forest is not there, I mean, the carbon emissions will be the 100 times than they are at this point now.
Absolutely. I think an ecosystem itself, the Amazon, and like Hajra beautifully mentioned it, the lungs of the world. So you can imagine that if you're messing with your lungs, then you know what's going to happen to you. So I think very, very important and very pertinently for those of you who are out there, all of you young buds as well, if you do get a chance, do study a bit about the Amazon rainforest. You'll be astonished at the ecosystem and the number of species it possesses as well. So some very interesting facts. And of course, speaking about facts, let's talk about some of the latest developments that we've got today on the top stories.
Right. So why don't you go ahead, Ahmed?
Absolutely. First of all, we've got Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, who has, of course, mentioned a tweet that has raised an alarm bell for the entire world. And that, of course, details where the Prime Minister has warned that climate change would not spare other countries after flash floods inundated 1/3 of Pakistan and has left millions homeless. In a tweet, he's reiterated his call for urgent action a day after the United Nations issued a revised flash appeal of $816 million as relief assistance for Pakistan. Now, of course, remember, this is very, very important that Pakistan is contributing less than 1% to global carbon emissions. But when you talk about the effects of climate change, we're probably one of the most affected countries in the world. Of course, moving on, we've got some unfortunate news as well, where there have been a rash of child deaths in Gambia linked to cough syrups made in India. That's been said by the World Health Organization.
Right. And that's very concerning because it has issued a medical report alert for the 4 contaminated medicines detected in the Gambia, which have been potentially linked to acute kidney injuries and child deaths. The 4 medicines are cough and cold syrups produced by Maiden Pharmaceuticals Limited in India. The UN Health Agency said WHO is conducting further investigation with the company and regulatory authorities in India, and the chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus told reporters the 4 cold and cough syrups in question have been potentially linked with acute kidney injuries and 66 deaths among the children. WHO warned that while the contaminated products have so far only been detected in the Gambia, they may have been distributed outside of the West African country.
That's very interesting now. So that means that human rights and its abuses is not the only law where India is going through. Now they're producing these cheap, low quality medicines as well, which are, of course, I think as disastrous as the situation of human rights and minorities in India.
That's true. And matter of the fact is the African continent usually comes under the least developed countries indicator. And if you are sending these medicines there and you are thinking that they're lesser beings than you, then I think this calls for a lot of answers from the Indian companies who are actually doing there, because I don't think so. They should be primarily be motivated by the capital and profits.
Yeah.
Health is
Safety
something.
standards.
Yes, health is something very important, and we should never play with the health concerns.
Absolutely. And talking about health concerns and what the world has been through, we've got a very interesting topic in our first segment. We're going to be discussing women in Pakistan during COVID-19, and that's very, very important because, of course, not just in Pakistan, globally we've seen this phenomena, but I think it's very interesting that we now get to appreciate and discuss that role of women during COVID-19.
Right, and I have some really important aspects or statistics to share, because it is believed, of course, COVID is now the thing of the past, but we don't know how many future pandemics can strike in, right? The way that climate change and the things are going on inside the world. So 51% of the women, they occupy, according to the Forbes, they occupy the wealth influencers, and 81% of the purchases are made by the women when it comes to that. So they're an important market when you consider the consumerism, and also as a contributor towards the workforce when it comes to that. And apart from that, they're not just employed into the organizations doing the jobs, but they're also caregiver, taking care of their families, their households, and whatnot.
Well, let me tell you a very important fact. You can never, and I mean never, outsmart Hajra in research and facts. She's going to come at you with these facts straight on, and she's going to give you the exact numbers. And that's, I think that's what we love about Hajra, because that drive for research is necessary at this moment in life where people are so confused with technology. But she's there getting out these numbers for you and, of course, for us as well. So I think congratulations.
Jazakallah khair, Ahmed. I'm really humbled by your words. So moving on to our topic.
Absolutely.
And we are going to unpack two very important things in our conversation, which is about the diversity and digital transformation, which is driving the world nowadays. They're the buzzwords. So Ahmed, why don't you go and introduce our guest?
Absolutely. We're very, very honored to be joined by somebody who's leading that digital transformation campaign, and of course their footprint in Pakistan and globally is already known, but I think it takes a trickle-down effect from the top leadership if you want to make that transformation. And if the leadership is ready to transform digitally, then trust me, it's definitely going to come down, and that's what they're doing. And we're very, very honored to be joined by today Mr. Mujib Zahoor, who's the Managing Director for S&P Global. Assalamu alaikum, Mujib. How are you?
Assalamu alaikum.
Good morning.
Good. Good morning.
Well, you look very nice, so that means it's been a great morning so far.
Thank you. Thank you. Mornings are not our usual time of day, so it's a bit, but you know, some cups of coffee are getting
I
me
think
going.
the buzzword, as Hajra mentioned, is digital transformation.
Right.
What does digital transformation mean when we talk about S&P Global?
Yeah. I think, so S&P is a global provider of ratings, benchmarks, indices, data and research to companies and organizations and corporates around the world. Our vision is to power the markets of the future. And this cannot be done in this day and age through leveraging technology, through using different platforms and channels that allow us to provide all of this data and these analytics to whether governments need them, companies need them, banks need them to make decisions with conviction. And I think when it, in the context of the conversation that we were having earlier about how digital transformation can empower women, that's an area that we're especially passionate about. We have taken several initiatives aimed at empowering women using digital and technology means so that they can be more inclusive in the economy, they can get better employment opportunities, they can learn skills that allow them to be a part of the economy, especially in a country like Pakistan.
Self-employed as well,
Self-employed, freelancers bring in a ton of money into the country. Women should have equal opportunity to be able to learn those skills so that they can also take a piece of the pie, so as to say.
Lovely, lovely. So when we talk about the she economy, which is a term introduced or coined in 2007, which is about women mostly in the economy, or driving the economy when it comes to that, do you think that the COVID pandemic has dented the she economy? Because a lot of women, they reported that they were quitting the job, or either they reduced their working hours because they were the caregivers and they felt that the pressure was too much to bear when it comes to that. So what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, it's very, very interesting that you bring that up. So we recently conducted a study in partnership with the US-Pakistan Women Council, which is a US State Department initiative, and also in partnership with the University of Texas A&M.
Okay.
S&P Global in Pakistan partnered with both of these organizations. We're also part of the US-Pakistan Women Council.
Lovely.
And that study was aimed at, it's perhaps one of the first of its kind done in Pakistan.
Okay, wonderful.
And it tried to measure the impact of the pandemic on working women in Pakistan.
Right.
Okay.
And Hajra, to your point,
Right.
both of those areas came out as very outsized revelations.
Okay.
About 44% of the women reported that they suffered a loss of earning
Okay.
as a result of the pandemic, which is a very, very
Huge number.
high number,
Right.
and I think an indicator for policymakers and corporates as well on what steps can they take to address that. Secondly, I think on your point around caregiving,
Right.
almost 47% women alluded to the fact that the burden of care fell onto them.
True.
Now, this is I wouldn't say unique situation to Pakistan, but
Right.
the number is very significantly higher.
For us, it's a cultural thing, probably.
It's a cultural thing probably, but I think linking it to the point of how do we create an inclusive economy, I think understanding this for organizations like ours, for other organizations that aim to hire large numbers of workforce,
Okay.
hopefully a lot of them women, I think it's very important that they understand this dynamic and take steps in terms of policies, in terms of benefits, in terms of how are they going to go attract women to come work for them, and keep these things in mind. I'm sorry, one more thing I will mention, which I think is equally pertinent, a lot of times we don't speak about it as much,
Right.
is mental wellness.
Absolutely.
I think one of the elements of this study that I think differentiates us from a lot of other areas is that we try to tease out and capture the impact on mental well-being as well.
Right.
And you will, I was sort of surprised, but to really see the numbers, that 1 in 3 women felt that they were adversely impacted, their mental well-being was adversely impacted as a result of the loss of income, of the burden of care going up, etc.
Okay.
And they got into a conflict with either their partner or somebody in their household. So I think very, 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 very important that we address these things so that we can enable that she economy that you're referring
But
to.
it's very important because you talk about that policy decision, and I think, Hajra, we're very actually lucky now that we've moved to a point where policy-wise a huge decision from the government came a while
Right.
back, where the
Right.
first maternity policy for Pakistan came in. I think that was also supporting women where they were entitled for a 3 to 4 months leave, and then of
Right.
course it came to a paternity leave as well. So it was going to that fact. Like you mentioned, your study not just gave you an insight, but now we've developed an indicator to gauge it as well. Unfortunately, in Pakistan, number one, like you mentioned, we don't discuss the subject. It becomes a social taboo, especially mental well-being. How important does it become to then actually have these indicators? So probably the next year, once we're doing this study, or somebody for the fact does research, we actually know the direction of how to gauge this difference now.
I think it is absolutely critical. I mean, to your point, I think organizations and corporates, the government has a role in creating an enabling environment, enabling policy framework. I think knowledge economy, we talked about, the digital transformation. A fundamental pillar of that is the knowledge economy.
Right.
Creating laws that enable knowledge economy workers will include things like that, will include physical well-being, will include mental well-being. As you very rightly said, creating a framework that allows or enforces to an extent corporates and companies to provide these mechanisms to their workforce. For example, not to self-boast, S&P Global in Pakistan does about a 6-month maternity leave and an equal amount for paternity leave. We've done this before the law or the framework by the government came up.
Okay, wonderful.
We provide unlimited leave opportunities to all of our colleagues. So I think creating that framework is very, very important. And to your point, I think any benchmarking, any such measurement has to happen at regular intervals. You have to go back and sort of see whether you're making progress. There can be a framework in other countries. There are frameworks where companies are required to report out on this. So that way you don't have to do one big concerted effort.
Right.
You already report several things on a quarterly basis. why not start reporting on this as well?
Absolutely.
And so this is exactly the kind of actionable change that we want to drive as a result of studies like this. This particular study is aimed to do that. So I think if we can, using this platform, if I can say that, if we can enable this change, if we can work with the government and relevant authorities to make certain that such frameworks are devised, I think the problem that you're alluding to gets solved automatically.
Automatically, that's very important.
Okay, so coming back to the point of the mental wellness, because we are seeing the phenomena called quiet quitting, which is gaining a lot of momentum around the world, which is that people or the employees are not going above and below to work or put a lot of their energy into it. They're just putting the amount of the energy which is required for them to do. And this alludes to the fact that the modern mind, when it comes to the capitalistic markets, is suffering from some sort of stagnation, right? And I would allude to it in the mental wellness or aspect of that, right? So why do you think is the mental wellness is such an important topic, and the modern mind is suffering from such sort of stagnation, and how does that reflect on the employer's retainability when it comes to that?
Wow, that's literally a billion-dollar question.
I told you she's good in research.
If not a higher value. I think there are 2-3 elements that have to be looked at. I think first of all, over the last 5 years, there's been a lot of change in how we do things and what things we do.
Right.
So that change has created these gaps that cause stress to people in the workforce. How do I, develop these new skills? How do I keep up with all of these changing technologies? How do I make sure that my skills are up to date so that I am not losing out on any opportunities? I think that stress then results in the mental wellness challenges that you're alluding to, as well as the quiet quitting. There have been so many terms since the pandemic. There's the great resignation, then we heard it's happening, then we heard it's not happening, now it's quiet quitting. So I think that is where, and people talk about engagement, right? This is a word that was very relevant in the last 10 years, employee engagement. More engaged employees will be more productive, more efficient, more innovative. Now, I think if you as an organization, as an enterprise, be it a government or private or whatever, if you are not taking steps to make sure that your employees' physical and mental well-being is looked after, I think it's not a nice to have, it's a direct business cost. It will result in employees being less productive, employees being less efficient, employees not being able, or your team members not being able to upskill themselves so that they can take on challenging roles.
And the lack of communication.
Obviously they will not be able to, they will not just participate because they won't be engaged. So I think that is why it is a business use case. So, as I was giving you, again, not to self-boast, but just as an example, introducing things like where people have access to mental wellness resources online. We provide that to all our colleagues. They have a platform that they can use for mental and physical well-being.
Can you be more specific? So obviously we can get a better understanding of that.
Right. So there are platforms available. I won't sort of go into names, but there are platforms available that you can subscribe to, just like you subscribe to any other service. And you can use those platforms. They will give you daily exercises. You can call them. They're available to provide any help. You can have conversations with specialized subject matter experts on any areas that you want.
Interactive sessions, basically.
Interactive sessions, and using apps, because people are on their phones all the time. So you do not want to create a separate experience. You can just put it in this experience as well. And I think also creating, so we have this concept of wellness days. I don't want to make you guys and our people who are listening jealous, but we get these wellness days, and the idea
we already are. From the title, we are now. Because I'm thinking, where are our wellness days since the past
So we get about 7 wellness days in a year. The idea came from our president and CEO, Doug Peterson. He launched this concept. They were called Doug Days in the beginning, and now they're called wellness days. So those are days where we actually encourage our people to go, relax and rejuvenate. We also give this wellness allowance to people for the whole year that they can use to buy wellness equipment. They can use to sort of book therapies. They can get reimbursed.
I'm sorry to cut you, but that's specific because during COVID, we had obviously Social Circle who was working there, where they told us that some of them were buying bicycles, treadmills and stuff because they had that wellness allowance during COVID.
Yeah, you seem to have friends with our work. Absolutely. That's the whole point, right? And now, as I said earlier, I think the key thing that I want to being cognizant of time is, I think investment in these areas is super critical because it is not a nice to have anymore. It is not something that you can do as part of your, CSR. Oh yeah, we do this, so our people are happy. I think it's a core driver of productivity and efficiency. And just linking it back, I think the study that we conducted in partnership with the US-Pakistan Women Council and the University of Texas A&M, I think it has so many indicators that further solidify what we're talking about. That it is a fact, as determined by these numbers, that these measures are absolutely critical, and perhaps a lot more has to be done, especially because the impact on women of all of these things is significantly outsized as opposed to men.
That's very important. Hajra, you yourself, representing that part of society, how would you see those spread? I think it's very important to understand that, of course, we tend to boast about our workloads and our routines, but if not equal, it probably gets a bit more on the end of women as well.
That's very true, because I think there are a lot of cultural factors that also restrain women from going out, especially talking about the South Asian cultures, because the mobility of women is closely linked with the notions of honor, right? And I was reading this thing that a lot of women do not report harassment cases because then their gharwalas or their household people would say, do not go out because
suppress
it's not,
them,
it's not safe space out there. I mean, they're not actually, in shackling them, but then again, they're also cognizant of the fact that the spaces are not safe out there. So I will not outrightly blame them. Yes, they do have their concerns when it comes to that, but these social norms, they need to change. So coming back to the social norms and linking it with the she economy, right? We see that there are a lot of women, especially in the rural areas and also in the urban areas, where there are drivers or there are obstacles in their way to going out for the work job. So what exactly is your organization doing in addressing those sort of cultural barriers, or there are any policies in place?
Yeah, no, great question, Hajra, and absolutely, I think considering the fact that such a large number of our population lives in rural areas, about 3 years ago, this was actually just in the pandemic year or just before that, we partnered again with the US-Pakistan Women Council and this program called the Million Women Mentorship Program, which is a global program that aims at inculcating STEM skills and employability skills in women and young girls. So S&P Global partnered with them and pledged that we will mentor 20,000 girls and women in Pakistan using S&P Global mentors from around the world and in STEM skills and employability skills. I'm very pleased to share, we've done close to 11,000 so far. We're very, very confident we'll complete it by our pledged time of 2020, end of 2023. But the important element there, to your point, is that almost 35% of these 11,000 mentorships that have been done come from rural areas and underserved areas. So we have examples of where women have a small business, in a village in southern Punjab or Sindh, and they just didn't know how to keep track of their inventory. A little intervention teaching them some basic Excel skills and how to create Excel, how to enter stock data, etc., helped a long way in bringing efficiency to them. Now, it might seem to a lot of people listening and viewing this that this is such a small and trivial thing. How can that? But to a small business owner, these sort of micro interventions, I think, become very, very helpful. So that is one such initiative, and I'm sure there are other organizations that have done plenty of work in that space. There are amazing programs out there for women entrepreneurs that they can use, that they can take advantage of. I think that is absolutely critical if we are to bring such a large segment of our population into the formal economy. And I'll just, while it is not directly linked, but I think it's a very important fact. S&P Global ran this campaign called Change Pays, where we collected a lot of data around how can women and what would happen if women were a more formal part of the economy. If you're a fan of research, I would invite you to go and check it out. I think it has some fantastic information. Just one anecdote I'll share with you, that if you're able to include more women in the formal economy by about 10% high increase in the number of women in formal economy adds about $6 trillion to the global GDP.
Okay, wonderful.
That's the scale of the effort. So it's real value on the table that we're leaving if we do not address that.
Absolutely. These are phenomenal numbers, and that's why I say, and of course this is Hajra's forte, that these numbers really mean a difference because they actually empower us to develop this future course of action.
That's true. And can you also build onto your existing premise about empowering women that are living in the rural areas? Can you give us some examples that how you've done that?
Right. I think one example, as I shared, where we were able to help women entrepreneurs who are struggling with basic skills. And again, as I said, that program is ongoing.
Which particular skill would you mention?
So the one I talked about was how can they use technology to manage their business better. That's number one. Number two, women struggle in marketing their products. How to use, again, technology. How can you use all the tools that we have now available to ourselves, digital media, Facebook, other social media platforms that you can utilize to excel and increase the reach of your product. So that's one. The other, I think, equally important area is finding women who can sort of become knowledge workers in technology organizations like us.
Right.
Since the pandemic, across all technology organizations, the need for having people with certain skill sets has only increased. And now you don't need to bring them into the office to work, right? We've hired close to, I think, 800 people in the last 2 years, new hires and replacements. A lot of them have never come to the office.
Work from home.
They're working from home.
So that's one thing the pandemic gave us.
Absolutely, it's a silver lining on an otherwise very, very dark cloud. But Hajra, to your point, I think running programs that provide these skills to women who come from underserved areas. We've done scholarships for women specifically who come from underserved areas. We've done specialized skill training programs for women in in women colleges and schools. And as I said, my recommendation to people and women listening especially would be utilize all online courses that we have available now. Leverage those so that you can develop these technical skills. Technology companies, not just ours, the current Pakistan is not a demand issue, it's a supply issue. There are more jobs out there now, and especially in technology companies, than the number of people we can find. And women from all areas now have an opportunity to be able to leverage that, and men obviously, but I think if we're talking about how can we get more women in the economy, I think that's a very, very simple area, and there is some work being done. The Punjab Skill Development Fund is doing something. Other areas are also doing something, but more can be done as well.
Well, it's a bit of a cliche then, but as an organizer, because you're running an organization, how important does it become, not just for your organization in particular, but across the board, that leaders and CEOs and country directors or organizations themselves understand in Pakistan the ability to provide equal opportunities?
Yeah, I think it's as I said, maybe 10 years ago or several years ago, it was a nice to have. It was something that you could do, and it will be okay. I think in this day and age, with the need of talent that corporates and organizations have, it's a must. Creating a diverse, equitable, and inclusive workspace has to be a central component of strategy. It is not something that gets the last page on your annual performance report in the CSR category. It has to be a central component, just like you measure financial performance, you measure productivity, you measure throughput, you measure. It has to be there. There is, no ifs, ands, and buts in my mind.
A driving force.
It has to be a central driving force of your strategy. And that's at S&P Global. That's what we believe in, and that's what we have. And I think a lot of other organizations have done that and are very, very successful with it.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, Ahmed, we were talking about the climate change earlier, and we were talking about the climate-induced disasters like flooding.
Absolutely.
And we have seen that how flooding has wreaked havoc across the, the entire country. And there are a lot of people who have got unemployed. Their businesses have been affected because of that calamity, right? And I really also wanted to talk about to you about the digital footprint as your new CV, right? And someone who employs a lot of people out there, right? So what exactly will you advise people who are very active social media users, how they should interact with the media, and how does their interaction impacts their job prospects, especially when it comes to hiring.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. So we're the third largest exporter in IT and IT-enabled services in the country. So we are also very closely associated with the Pakistan Software House Association. So the reason I'm giving you context is because we work with other technology companies as well, right? And the demand for certain skills, for example, Salesforce development, Oracle Cloud developers, engineers, AWS engineers, data visualization tools like Power BI, Blue Prism, etc. These skills are in demand if you have these sort of particular areas of expertise. You can find an opportunity very, very quickly. A lot of technology companies are looking for them, including us. Now, to your question of what can people do, the beautiful thing is all these things that I listed, these courses are available online.
Certifications,
Coursera is a very well-known product that people can interact with.
True.
Salesforce has an academy itself that you can use. Python certifications are available online. AWS has an academy online. So my suggestion and humble recommendation to people would be get involved in spending time. I mean, I'm not saying don't go surf videos and do all the other cool stuff people do. They should continue doing that. But these are real opportunity areas where, and this is not only Pakistani companies looking for this talent, global companies are looking for this talent. And again, post-pandemic, companies are willing to hire from wherever.
Absolutely.
Because you don't have to now, we've lost people. I mean, I say lost people. We've lost people to companies operating from Germany, Belgium, the US. Most of them are still working from Pakistan remotely. But I think it's a great opportunity for people to, and especially to, people who are digitally savvy or want to sort of augment their income. I think it's a great opportunity for them to learn these skills and improve their household.
Definitely. Mujib, it's been absolutely wonderful with this insightful. Me and Hajra can easily say one of the coolest managing directors we've had on the show. So thank you very much, and best of luck for all the future initiatives. And like I said, it was really insightful, all of this discussion. Great having you on the show today.
Thank you so much.
On that note, we'll go towards a short break, but when we come back, we'll have some very interesting things to discuss. Stay tuned to World This Morning.
सैलाब से मुतासरा बहन भाइयों की मदद के लिए आगे आए। अभी फंड लिखकर 9999 पर SMS करें और 10 रुपए अतिया करें या अपने अतियात वजीर आजम फ्लड रिलीफ फंड अकाउंट में जमा कराएं। हुकूमत पाकिस्तान।
welcome back. And before going on to the break, we were building onto the argument around the digital transformation and diversity, and that too in the marketplaces. So Ahmed, it is alleged about the businesses or the big businesses that they always build their capital on some crime or on something really off or bad, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to that. And this is often the critique on the capitalist centers that the only value that they give is to the capital, to the money, and nothing else matter. But I do feel that the debate around such kind of thing is now changing, and a lot of people are talking about the ethics, which are extremely important in the business
Do you
environment.
think that's because that we've been so much evolved now due to digital media and things get highlighted?
I do feel that digital media has been very prompt in incorporating a lot of knowledge and awareness to the people. So a lot of things do get viral if there are some bad practices going on, and that does spur a debate about how not to do that and what to do that. But again, has that really tackled that issue in that part of bad practices or illicit practices that should not be going on?
I think identifying them was the biggest challenge.
Right.
If we're able to identify them and speak about them,
Right.
eliminate that social taboo and that
Right.
cliche, then I think we're to a point now where certain organizations are addressing them. Or when we talk about the code of conduct, laws, moral
Right.
ethics, or even for that, I think rights of employees
That's
is something
true.
that really comes in
Right.
between. And we will be talking about all of this
Right.
in detail, how organizations can build on these rights of employees and how can they use those rights to be more productive and at the same time, of course, make sure that they're secure as well as far as their workplace is concerned. We're going to be talking all about this, and in studios we've been joined by somebody who's an educationist, an analyst as well, and when we talk about this realm of business and these code of ethics, he's definitely there. But most of all, I think he's probably one of the most positive people I know, because every morning there's a boost of positivity coming from him. Mr. Asif Rasool is joining us. Good morning, sir. Assalamu alaikum. How are you, sir?
Alhamdulillah.
Great to have you on the show.
It's a
And
great privilege.
like Hajra mentioned as well, first of all, this becomes a very important subject. And I think, like we mentioned, the biggest challenge was to actually talk about morals and ethics in the world of business.
Exactly, and especially what she has already referred, like because of this digitalization and like people are getting awareness and all that. Yes, it's very important. For example, just starting off with this 21st century and all that. Amazon, you must be familiar with, banned, and just look at the opportunities and just see the poor insight of the people who just went for this. Perhaps they are novice, perhaps they're not familiar, but there are a lot many experts. Even they spoiled their business as well. This really damaged our credibility, and it will obviously, this is like one aspect which we could see, because sitting at university level every day telling students that, well, this is the era of like digital or internet, and then got like world concept of globalization, and you can sell any of your skills in any part of the world. Now, what if the world gets to know that there's a problem with you and we are quite suspicious about you? So this is really damaging, and as a nation, we have got to. Second, I'm from one specific area. I think I don't need to mention that area. Hajra, I really feel sorry. I am in academia, and we always talk, guide, teach students that when you've got to go and you are tomorrow's business leaders, corporate leaders, and all that. So please understand this, so that whenever you get any opportunity, do it. I was just coming from my village, and then I saw that we have got groundnuts husked. Amin Saab, it was like 4 to 5 years back. Believe me, this was just a wastage. People used to waste it. But now we have got very nice orders from Middle East countries, and it became very expensive.
Profitable.
So profitable.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, there was like this, this husk was there, and people were just throwing it off. But now, I mean, even an ordinary farmer is getting more than 10,000, 15,000 rupees, and he could just, whatever expenditure were, he could just, accommodate easily those expenditure in this. But you know what people are doing? Miserable. I just saw like they just dig like earth, they just mix a lot just to increase the weight. And believe me, in my heart of heart, I was literally crying that you don't know what you're doing to the people of this area. I mean, we've got poor farmer, they spend a hell of time. There's a very lengthy process. It's not like you just prepare one video and tomorrow like it gets very much like it's going to have a lot many views.
Not
and
an
you will get
overnight process.
I mean, this is a very lengthy process. And then people have got like, there's a ray of hope, people are getting benefit from it. And then what you have done, and now Believe me, if you go back to the area, we have got these mountains of husk there because perhaps people are less interested, and obviously they are familiar with it. One is this is what you have done to the. Second, just see the credibility. Obviously, people get to know. Third,
The quality will
as
be
a
compromised.
human,
Yeah.
I mean, animals are going to eat it. Camels are going to eat it.
Absolutely.
You know what you are going to add in that and how it's going to affect them.
And
Just
eventually
like
affect us, because that's the way the cycle works.
Right.
And Aja, obviously one man's trash is another man's treasure. That's how it
true.
works.
That's true, and I think the way we are extremely exploiting the Earth's resources is evident. Very ugly manifestation of that is climate
Yeah.
change when you talk about it. So, talking about the moral and ethics in the business, I really wanted to ask you, Asif, that we've seen, especially corporate sector is now having this debate on the moral and ethics on the business environment out there. And we also see that a lot of millennials are coming, and millennials are actually into the employment sector. They are being hired, and they're more tech savvy. They're more into the digital world and aware when it comes to their previous generations. So do you think that the big companies or the MNCs are taking this as a bait for the marketing skills to employ a good personalities, or is it just that the debate has a real substance to it when it comes to that?
Well, Hajra, we have got like two aspects. We have got the Western world. I don't think so that I'll feel bad about it by appreciating them. At least they've got a proper rule and law. And if they have developed SOPs for that, so whoever is going to violate and somebody gets to know about this, so they'll be just called. Okay, somebody is going to ask them.
Prompt action.
But in our part of the world, I know one ministry as well, I'm not going to talk about it, which is concerned with labor and all that. Now, most of the laborers who are working there, they do not know even their own rights. So when they don't know their rights, do you think that they're going to talk about? Yes, the industry which you are going to talk about are like people who have got white collar jobs.
Corporate
yes, they have
sector,
got corporate
basically,
sector. Yes, it is there, but still in Pakistan, we have got like international firm. They do care. I have seen, especially in multinational companies, one, yes, whatever they just claim, apparently, it is there. They take care of their employees as well. When it comes to our like highly refined Pakistani companies as well, I have seen. I mean, they try to align whatever they say. But challenge is dark areas where people are not familiar, and then everyone is going to play with them, and resultantly there is a chaos and all that. And talking about this office environment, I mean, fear. Most of Pakistani bosses, they try to control you through fears. Okay, now fear cripples your energy, fear cripples your skills, fear cripples your potential. So if you're going to make people scared, and then you're going to make them work because your bosses have got to get promotion, they've got to go higher, and they've got their own thing, they really want you to get it done, or maybe they're going to ask you to sit for the extra hours. Problem is, people do not have aware about their own rights, and it's not like clearly in the rules. We have got certain rules before us, so that's why this is a problem.
What about envy? What about envy? Because
Right.
if you allow,
sure.
that's the biggest barrier that I've seen in organizations: envy between employees, and then envy where a top management official or a boss, if you might say it in common words, would gauge that one of his employees is more smarter and productive and technologically advanced, for example, than him, and he will start feeling insecure, and eventually he'll try to put him down, suppress him, move him to a corner. Or certain employees, when they gauge that, okay, for example, my colleague, instead of appreciating that because it will create competition and all of us will grow, they start that factor of envying that person.
Exactly, you hit the nail on the head. I fully agree. A week back, I was in one of the top government institution for the training. So a young guy, highly talented. I can just share whatever you have discussed so far. He just came and he said that I'm excellent at language, I'm excellent at computer, I'm excellent at my area of specialization. Now my problem is that when I'm there, my boss always feel insecure. And because of this, one way or the other way, he is disturbing me. And I had a lot of desire, I had a lot of goals, but now I'm stuck. I can't do it. So we get like, you're right, we have got two categories of the bosses, and One is who thrive on your potential, on your good skill. They polish you.
Appreciate
They
it,
really
yes.
appreciate you.
Yes.
And they know it that I am developing someone. Then we have got another category of the bosses who play on your weaknesses. And once somebody starts playing on your weaknesses, so you could see who is going to win and what they're going to get out of it. Yes, this is one of the causes. I
But
fully agree.
then again, I would disagree with your statement, because you talked about that the West has a better regulations when it comes to that, and that has how they curb the illegal or immoral practices in the business environment. And I would like to quote here the case study of the Johnson and Johnson, and they were producing that
Yeah.
talcum powder, which has caused a lot of cancer in the
Absolutely.
babies, right?
That research
And
came out, yes.
exactly. And then they discontinued that powder because they felt that there was a lot of bad marketing going on about their company when it comes to that. I think they were still violating the law, and they were still into the illegal and immoral
Yeah.
practices.
But no marketing is bad, is it? They still got their names in the headlines.
Of course, because it's a very huge, giant MNC when
Yeah.
it comes to that. But then again, if it's really about the legal practices, so for example, Pakistan has banned the child labor, especially when it comes to brick kilns. But do you think it has curbed the problem when
Yeah,
it comes to that?
enforcement, yes.
But, I mean, we can't say that this problem has got only like one side. There are multiple directions. They are concerned with this, like poverty. You're not going to engage people properly so that they are going to have their very respectable livelihood, and the
Illiteracy,
children are
basically.
going to go to
Yeah.
the school, and this is how. Or maybe where these kids are working, even if they engage them, maybe in the evening, they're just going to provide them with some fee and they go to the evening school and all that. This is not happening. I mean, problem in our part of the world, especially in Pakistan, we implement, but then there is no proper follow-up. For example, 3 years back we saw that perhaps of this environmental issues, we were told that, well, very soon the government is going to ban plastic bags. They did ban, and just see, you just eliminated one of the aspect of the industry. But then, like, there were so many people, and they like got very enthusiastic that, well, there's something new and we are going to make it. They did prepare that. Now see what's happening. There is no rule and law. There is no check and balance. Now I could still appreciate all those guys without naming them, especially in Pindi and Islamabad. Believe me, still they align to that. If you go to their I mean, whether these are bakeries or shopping store, whatever that is, still they've got like what we call like
A no
environment
plastic
friendly
policy, no
and
plastic policy.
Yes, so they are there and they are doing it. But what about rest of the lot? 90% people. So when at the end of the day they see that, well, they just came up with the idea, we did implement that, and now the result is ultimately we are suffering and rest of the people are at loose.
Definitely.
So it's really going to
Impact
affect
it, yes, definitely. Well, I think a lot of insight from you as well. But Hajra, do you think then that's why the role of educational institutions becomes very important? Because
Right.
this is something you can impart at a very early stage.
But yes, it is a fact. But does that impartment of the education solves the problem of the illegal or immoral practices? Because we see that the Western societies, when it comes to the literacy rate, they are more advanced than us, right? But we do not see that there is no crime there. I mean, they're very sophisticated, white collar crime still out there, right?
Yeah.
But then again, I do feel that sometimes the multinational corporations, they're so powerful that they're even controlling the governments when it comes to
Absolutely.
that, right? And the governments are really afraid to take
Well,
them
I said
up.
it at the start. If you want to make Hajra believe something, give her research, facts and figures. Otherwise, she's going to come at you straight on. But that's how it is. But Asif Saab, thank you very much for joining us on World this morning. It's been great and insightful having you. And I think a lot of us now need to realize, Hajra, how important is it to not just make these rules and regulations, but as you mentioned, enforcement.
Right. Enforcement, and I do believe that we can look beyond the very Eurocentric lens of the business practices, and we can revert to the Islamic practices when it comes to that. For example, the Lord of Holy Prophet Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he used to take out the trading activities, and how his trade blossomed and bloomed because of his sheer honesty and a
Honesty,
hard
yes.
work when it goes to that. So hard work and honesty does pay you off, and I do think that the very moral and ethical practices do exist, and we need to take inspirations from some of the very good personalities when we are there, right? So we would like to wrap our segment.
Absolutely. It's been really insightful, and I've truly enjoyed this morning, as I always do. And like I said, when you've got a fact machine, you're right on for a great
Jazakallah
show
khair.
ahead. But that being said, before going, I've got a very special message to all you people out there. Because now we're discussing this fact where commute is becoming very important. I think I always say this, road safety and road rage is something you all need to manage. It's not just the authorities. So of course you need to drop your children to school. You're late at work. But please be careful, because people around you, if you're following the rules of traffic and lane discipline, everybody's going to get there in time. So please, if somebody wants the right lane, give him space. Don't create a race out of it. So be there, be responsible, and be a responsible citizen. Do write to us on all our social media platforms of World This Morning. We'd love to hear from you as well. And until next time, from me, Hajra, and the entire team of World This Morning, it's goodbye for now.